So before we set the scene of what it was like in the 60s, when people were not afraid to search their hearts for spirituality, Prabhupada arrived with compassion, sweetness, and humor, open-mindedness. We're speaking this morning so nicely about the labor of love and all our acharyas, Lord Chaitanya, who have given their life many challenges. They persevere. That's the theme. Prabhupada said that Krishna consciousness is not always peace of mind because we're in the mood of the gopis. How can we serve better? How can we serve more? So in the theme of this morning that Radhanath Maharaj so nicely laid out, he talked about Prabhupada. And Prabhupada told me in Delhi, one time we were standing on the balcony of the Akash Ganga, and one taxi pulled up and some devotee men got out, and then that, just right behind the taxi pulled up and some devotee women got out, and Prabhupada said why they couldn't ride together. I used to walk across Delhi to distribute my back to Godhead. Now just see the perseverance that he decided he was going to write, edit, and publish and distribute and beg for paper to get a newspaper back to Godhead. No one asked him to do it. The real heroes are the ones who do it without being forced by title or history or peer pressure. He did it. He walked across Delhi or 5 paisa on the bus, and he's preparing in Vrindavan to take this to the West. Why was Back to Godhead in English? Because he's taking it to the West. He's preparing. Back to Godhead was in English. And he wrote the poem, Adore, adore the holy day, sweeter than May. He told me, and it was in a purport, that in India, May is a very hot month, but in the West, it's a spring, beautiful month. So even the poem, Adore, adore the holy day, was preparing to go to the West with this labor of love. As you said, he didn't know anybody. We had a movement, we had friends, we were building a family. He had no one. There was no mridungas or anything. No cartels, no movement. All alone, on the Bowery. That's the labor of love that we're glorifying today, the labor of love. So because Prabhupada demonstrated it, and we couldn't even keep up with him. When he walked, he's always fast, and his energy, and then he's translating, and then, are you tired, Prabhupada? He's preaching. No, I'm not tired. Tremendous energy, which meant that Krishna really was, he was the clean, pristine, wonderful instrument of Krishna in his labor of love.
Yeah, well, I think the theme for tonight is in 2 parts, labor of love and how it all began in UK. So Gurudas has introduced Prabhupada's theme of labor of love, and I'll talk a little bit about how it began. When this Swami came to us in San Francisco, I think most of us were attracted not only to his physical beauty. He was the most beautiful person we'd ever seen in our lives. He glowed constantly graceful in every movement. And he seemed to know everything. There was no point of knowledge that he couldn't answer, no question he couldn't answer. But I think one of the Prabhupada's amazing qualities that attracted us the most was his sense of adventure and risk. We were all kind of adventurers, travelers, riskers, and boy, we loved that about Prabhupada, that he came there as an old man with nothing, sat down in the Haight-Ash. He was the only guru or holy man who sat down in Haight-Ashbury for months on end with all of us, thousands of hippies. Some would come and visit 1 or 2 days and go away, but Prabhupada sat there with us. And we loved that idea of risk. He told us two things, basically, that we should become Krishna conscious ourselves and that we should spread Krishna consciousness. These were the two main items he told us. And he said that you get two for the price of one. The secret of Krishna consciousness is you become Krishna conscious by spreading Krishna consciousness. We love that idea. I love that idea. I think probably Prabhupada came to us in January of 1967, and I think about a year, he had been there for 3 months, and he came back a second time, and by the time he came back, we'd been in the temple there for more than a year in San Francisco, and we were starting to get a little antsy. We wanted to go out and help Prabhupada spread Krishna consciousness. The temple in San Francisco was up and running, there was money, there were a lot of new devotees. I remember you and Jamuna were talking about going to India, and Mukunda had gone down to San Francisco to start the new center there. We were starting to get a little itchy about leaving San Francisco, starting something new. Do you remember how the London idea got started? How we're gonna?
Well, because Prabhupada sometimes, it was so nice, like you said, sometimes he would just bring up subjects that didn't seem to have anything to do with Krishna consciousness per se, but how can you say nothing has to do with Krishna per se? But you know, it's just sometimes. So he said how important London is because it was the center of the world, he said. It's the hub of the world. And you can go in the street and you hear all the different accents. It really is an international place. And because his guru wanted something in London, he wanted to fulfill his guru's wishes.
Can I read just one? You said I can't read.
No, go ahead. No, but I'd like to hear you speak.
He's a speaker, and I'm a writer. I can't speak like Gurudas.
Yeah, but I can read too. I'm taking Malati's place to pass him a
he's
little bit.
The Swami was born in India in 1896 during the peak of the British Raj. His schooling, his language, many of his mannerisms, and gentlemanly behavior were deeply influenced by English colonial rule. We knew right from the beginning that Swamiji really wanted to start a center in London. America was now the world leader, so he started his mission in America. But he often spoke how his own guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Swami, wanted a Krishna conscious center in London. Bhaktisiddhanta had dispatched several of his disciples to London back in the 1930s, and they had made a distinct impression on the British upper classes, but had not established a permanent foothold. The times were just not right. But by 1967-68, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and other British rock groups were the most popular musicians in the world. And as the love and peace Haight-Ashbury hippie scene started to decline, the London hippie scene was expanding.
Mm-hmm.
I had been to the UK a couple of times. I had hitchhiked around England in the summer of 1963 and spent a month in London in '65, and I loved the place. So the day before he leaves for New York, I screw up my courage, go up to Willard Street, and sit down in the Swami's room. Swamiji, I have a proposal. Malati and I want to go to London to start a temple there. Mukunda and Janaki and Jamuna and Gurudas say they will also come, the 6 of us. What do you think? So Prabhupada said, let me think about it for a while. Your wife is pregnant. When is the baby coming? And I thought, maybe June, something like that. He said, well, let us think about it, and I'll let you know. That was my...
It's beautiful.
Should I read the letter? That
Sure.
Okay. Finally, on the 7th of June, Prabhupada sent me this letter from Montreal. My dear Shyamsundar, I think it is Krishna's desire that now I shall shift my activities, at least for some time, in the European countries. So it is almost certain that I'm going to London by the month of August. And if you all wish to come there, then you can prepare for the trip. If Malati delivers her baby during the Rath Yatra festival, then she can take 1 month's rest in July and may be able to accompany you with her newly born Krishna conscious baby. For the time being, finish your work in the hands and side by side try to chalk out a program how we shall propagate Krishna consciousness in the European countries. And we began to work on it, side by side.
Because we're talking about Rath Yatra, Shyamsundar had already practiced, got ready for the Rath Yatra, which was wonderful here. But the story is famous. Malati was the one who actually, such energy too, was the one who procured things for us. Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead gave Malati a stove because we wanted one that cooks chapatis. She got it. The famous story, Prabhupada was above the temple and he was looking down, and he was used to watching silent movies. He liked Charlie Chaplin movies, so he can see things in mime. So there was a man delivering dairy items to the corner store near the temple. She waited till the man had his little, in the store, a few things of milk, butter. She went in and took the whole butter flat, like this, she was carrying it into the temple. And Prabhupada was watching. She was so proud. She put the butter, put the flat out, put the butter in a refrigerator. About an hour later, Swamiji calls her up. Oh, we only had one dhoti and one sari in the movement. She puts on the sari. Comes up, oh, I'm going to see the Swamiji. So, you have stolen the butter? She became like a protoplasmic bunch of butter herself, like, oh, you should not steal. It is Krishna's property. You should treat other people's things like stool in the street. You should not steal. But the beauty was he instructed us, but he always forgave us. This is an example. He said, but if you have to steal, then steal butter. Because Krishna's called Rock and Shore.
Well, that's a perfect example of kind of like the playfulness that Prabhupada brought us. It was okay to cut corners if you did it for Krishna.
Yeah.
And how that, we cut so many, I'm thinking now about how we prepared to go to London. Even that we didn't have enough money to go. So we hatched a plan where one couple would go to London first because you had to show the customs here that if you were on one-way tickets, which we were,
one-way ticket,
that you had sufficient money in your account to stay in the country and leave.
Very strong.
And I think the minimum was $600 or something. That's all we had. So, well, even before we left, I remember trying to get my passport. I was a convicted felon, and they took my passport when I went to
They
jail.
took it when we got arrested in Belgium, do you remember?
Later, okay. Before we even went, so I had to get a passport. So Malati called the customs, or the U.S. passport agency, and pretended to be my probation officer.
Which is kind of true.
Yeah. He said, I'm allowing Mr. Sperster to leave the country. Kindly send his passport. And it finally got to me the day before we were due to leave in New
Krishna's
York.
grace. Krishna's
That's the
grace.
kind. Stealing the butter, fudging on the passports, fudging with the customs to show how much money we had. All these things were all part of the playfulness that Prabhupada instilled in us. He never said you must be codified this way, that way.
He explained that we can get people to serve by love, not force. Simple. By love, not force. But wasn't it $1,000?
We had $1,000, but we took
And
out
50.
we paid our, yeah.
You
we
went
paid
in
our,
first.
and that paid for our airline tickets, so we had
Oh,
less than that. We
gee.
had about 600 left,
Oh.
bare minimum.
And they're very stroppy in English.
So we all went to Amsterdam, and these guys stayed in a hotel there. Monty and I came in first. And immediately, first thing, we went to American Express and telegraphed you the money.
Right.
You took it out in guilders, I think, Dutch guilders, so that you could show customs when you came a few days later. And then immediately, you and I went down to American Express and wired it to Mukunda, who came in a few days later with $600. That's it, that's all we had. Mm. But you know, we knew we were going to succeed here, and we spent months thinking about London and talking about it and getting ideas. It didn't just happen. We carefully, Krishna always, Prabhupada always says, you make a plan, then you let Krishna unfold the plan, but you should have a plan. And we just kind of opened the door to Krishna guiding us whatever we did.
So, as I was saying, we were also practicing. He was spoon feeding us Krishna conscious. So, after I think 6 months, he gave us Brahman initiation. He was teaching us. He taught him how to do accounting. The adage is put it down immediately, and then he put a line. He's teaching us everything. But did we learn? Not always. So now Malati was chastised, but she didn't learn. So we thought everything from India was spiritual, practically. Oh, we got a shirt from India, it's spiritual. So she goes, because she was very good at procuring things and we didn't have any money, it's called the 5-finger discount, where you just kind of... So she saw this thing from India and she thought, oh, this is nice, it's really nice. Because the Swamiji was so part of us, he sat with the hippies, as Allen Ginsberg said, Allen Ginsberg. That's why he was successful. So she says, Swamiji, is this from India? Because she thought it may be Cambodian, Thai, whatever. Is this from India? Suddenly, the great Swami is bowing down to you. He says, you brought Krishna. And then he told briefly the story of Jagannath. And then he calls our master builder. I mean, he really is a good builder. In his book, he even talks about 2x4s and this one. And can you carve this sandwich? And sure enough, he got this big railway plaque. I mean, you should tell. But he carved it. It was wonderful. San Francisco Prasiyatra.
Yeah, I think that's the theme for tomorrow. Jog it out and everything tomorrow morning.
Oh,
This
so
is
what is tonight?
how it all started in UK.
Oh, how it all started. Okay. Let's see how short you
Maybe
are
it's time to
when you
read
roll.
something. All right. 190. Oh, okay. This fits in. 193. Do you mind if I read?
Not at all.
Okay. We were very confident that we would get something going in London. We just knew that it was our destiny to do this. I was so confident that Krishna would arrange a nice center in London that I picked out a design for the temple room from my illustrated book of Indian temples. The main cave temple at Ajanta looked just right to me. I drafted the design onto paper and sent it to the Swami. He replied, "It is a Buddhist design, but it is very nice." So I went to a lumber yard down on the peninsula and bought 60 tongue and groove finished redwood planks, 8 feet long
Right.
by 12 inches wide
Right.
by 3/4 inch thick.
Very important information for my Krishna consciousness.
And had them strapped to a pallet and shipped by sea freight to London with a hold for pickup label and notify on arrival care of American Express, Haymarket Street, London WC1, England.
But we had plans, but, you know, I remember Tribhuvanatha, I was glorifying the London Yatra and everything, and he said, "Gurudas, we were living in a place with no hot water and no heat." It didn't start glorious. And Malati, George Harrison used to do a Monty Python little joke. I was so poor that I slept on the floor. You had a floor? So part of it was I was so poor that I lived in a box. He made a refrigerator box with a window and some kind of shower, and Malati lived on the bottom floor with Saraswati in a box. You had a box?
You had a box? You guys were upstairs on that remember that sisal matting floor? It was so scratchy. That rug we had up to bed. This is Betterton Street.
See, we don't remember all the austerities. We don't remember them because, you know, we do service. But at first we didn't even live together. Clapham and Herne Hill and Brixton. We lived in Brixton. Jamuna didn't like Brixton with the
Hackney, that's where Mukunda lived, in Hackney.
Who?
Mukunda.
Yeah.
Hackney.
We were all apart. We'd get together for gatherings. We had a little bit of a congregation, a few Western devotees, but a lot of East Indian devotees, Prem Sayal.
I think central to our thoughts, though, all this time, where we were spread out and so on, was that we had to find a place in central London and make the best place we possibly could for Prabhupada to come. Just like a king. So for weeks and months and then almost years, Prabhupada would write. Almost every week he would write one of us and say, "I'm coming next week." And we would quickly write back and say, "No, please don't come yet. We need to have the perfect place for you." And then he would write back and say, "Okay, I'll wait a little while." But time after time we refused him coming here. He would have come on the next flight.
Yeah.
We wanted to have the perfect place for him when he did come.
And actually we were smart then because we did want to prepare for him. One of the times Prabhupada chastised me was when we were to open the Vrindavan temple, and it just wasn't ready. But I said, "Prabhupada wants it open, we'll do it. Let's open it." Saurabi said, "Gurudas, it's not ready." "No, but Prabhupada wants it, let's open it." Murli Das, Gurudas, it's not ready. "But Prabhupada wants it, let's open it." She went and said, Gurudas, it's not ready. Oh, okay. And you gotta get it ready. So yeah, we wanted it to be wonderful for Prabhupada. And we did consider, because Bob Dylan and the Beatles were like one step ahead of society. They were inspiring everybody with beautiful messages. You could also, in the harmonies, hear the words all about love and vulnerable, help, everything. They were just saying what we were thinking, Bob Dylan too. So we did, because we believed in Krishna consciousness. We wouldn't have done it if we were just hanging out on Clayton Street. That we want to meet the Beatles. And that wasn't easy either at first.
Well,
maybe you should talk about that.
That gradually came into place, but I was thinking of our mood at the time. It was also, yes, well, by sacrificing like this and struggling so hard for a temple, a showy temple in the heart of London, Krishna has to help us. We're not going to stop until Krishna makes it happen.
It's true, and it wasn't because we didn't try. Remember that place in East London that was a morgue?
The morgue.
That we looked at for a temple. You could feel the ghosts dripping off the walls. They had these things where all the fecal matter and guts would go down the thing, and that's where it went, and the whole place had a weird
I was thinking
atmosphere.
about that yesterday, because I've got a room in Holborn now, and I was walking down a street. I think it might have been that street.
Wow.
With the gray,
Yeah.
dismal place. We walked those streets every day. We walked all over this part of London. Every street that I'm seeing in the last few days, we've been on it looking. In those days, they had signs out in the front of buildings that said "To Let,"
Yeah, to let.
and then a phone number. So we'd walk up and down these streets every day, and Gurudas would go this way, I would go that way, and Mukunda would go that way, the girls would go their own ways. We'd write down numbers, phone numbers, and then get back to wherever we were staying and make calls all day. Now, of course, all of these places were far beyond our means, far beyond anything, but we kept trying. We're not going to stop until we have a place that's perfect for Prabhupada.
That place was a toilet, not a to-let.
I remember looking at you, the estate agents, standing there promoting the
No,
place. Looking at you,
yeah.
like we just went, we broke up. And there was fog coming out of your mouth. It was so cold in there.
Oh, remember when the fog coming out of her mouth and Mukunda and I pushed the car from Balam and you were pulling it with the little red truck and you saw all the steam coming out of it? We pushed the cart from Balam to Marble Arch.
Yeah. Well, you brought up the one.
Well, that's tomorrow's.
We kind of
about the opera.
thought about the Beatles might be our saviors and all this too. And it actually goes back to San Francisco. I remember the summer of '67. George Harrison and
Oh, yeah.
he came to Haight Street one day in San Francisco. And he walked down the street. It was a famous incident where he walked down the street all day in Haight-Ashbury.
Heart-shaped glasses.
Yeah, heart-shaped, yeah, rose-colored glasses. Anyway, and I was working somewhere that day, and I didn't see him. I came back and heard that he had been there, and I was so distraught that I missed that. And I started thinking, one of these days, we're going to meet this guy. We're going to get friends. We're going to be friends with this guy.
Krishna didn't want you to meet him that day.
No, I get
No,
it.
because George, what people don't know that George really has a good sense of humor. Not only the Monty Python, but he recounted, this is what he said, that I went to Haight-Ashbury and I forget the adjective he used, but it wasn't what he thought. He saw a lot of homeless people on the street. But what he didn't like, and he does an imitation of it with the heart glasses. He's just imitating to me. I'm going down the street, and somebody says, "Hey, George, would you take my guitar? Here's my guitar. Hey, George, here's some peyote. Take my girlfriend." It was like, he said, everybody was giving me. He thought it was ridiculous.
I think he said disgusted.
You did,
The
yeah,
answer to-
because of the homeless. And he also said, which was an interesting observation, that why do they give to rich people? Why not give to poor people? You know, it is a phenomenon. They already have things. You know. So he would talk about that. So if you met him that day, you would have just been another one
that's
of
right.
the
It was all perfect timing. It took a year to foster that feeling.
central casting.
Yeah. And meantime, unknown to us, and unknown to most people, is they had gotten a copy of Prabhupada's record
Yeah.
of chanting the Krishna Consciousness 33 and a third album.
Yeah.
I talked with Mr. Coleman on the phone a couple years ago.
Alan Coleman.
Yeah, when I was researching for this book. And he told me that they got the request from, what was the guy who had the bookstore?
Miles.
Miles. Miles sent the request on behalf of Apple. Miles, what was his last name? Miles, anyway.
No, Barry Miles.
Barry Miles, that was it.
Metaphysical bookstore.
Yeah, and so they sent 10 copies express air to the Beatles headquarters in London. So George had been hearing this album. He told us later that he would put it on and just play it for hours and chant along with us.
Yeah, for 3 days they did it.
That's
in this
right.
car, they
Yeah,
couldn't
yeah.
stop. You know how you're chanting, sometimes you can't stop, like a golden retriever, and then finally, I could. See, they couldn't stop.
On an acid trip. They did it,
Well,
yeah.
whatever.
Whatever.
Speaking of Allen Ginsberg, we did have a letter from him of introduction. He did, like we were saying, how he helped us.
Yeah.
So now he gave us a letter to Tom Dreberg, Member of Parliament, who turned out to be a double agent for the KGB. Really
Yeah.
stranger than fiction, this
But he
adventure.
loved the Krishnas.
Oh, he did. Remember we used to take him home in the Krishna car? He was drunk and he'd give us all the
We
money.
gave him a ride home.
Yeah.
Turned out his pockets and gave us
Yeah,
everything.
oh, yeah.
Well, you know,
He
remember
lived in
what
the
we
House
did?
of Commons.
Remember what we did with that letter?
Yeah.
We needed £10 for
course.
our Sankirtan permit. We had no money. So we went to a store down in a shop in, I think it was in Holborn, that bought autographs. And we sold them the letter from Allen Ginsberg for £10. Got the money for us.
Good idea. Because he wrote us some other ones. He wrote us some other ones. Okay, so now, again, challenges. We couldn't see the Beatles, but finally we did. That's an interesting story. But we couldn't see Tom Dreberg either. So we heard, see, this is what you have to do for Krishna. You got to use your intelligence to spread this. So we heard Tim Dreberg is in the hospital getting an eye operation. So we said, well, we didn't say perfect. Everybody says perfect in an imperfect world. We didn't say perfect. It was perfect. We said, okay, let's go. So we go there, 6 of us in Saraswati, and we go to the bed, and Jamuna says, oh, Mr. Dreberg, we've been wanting to meet you. Well, you know, like she's got a... So the guy in the bed starts going like that, and the needle's going like from that into flat. The nurses come running in, reviving him, and we hear across the room, oh, Mr. Dreberg. So like a cartoon thing, the suction and the shepherds go beep, beep, beep. Oh, Mr. Dreberg, we've been wanting to... Well, we gave him tapes because he had an eye operation. So he said, listen to these tapes. So then he wrote a letter. This is maybe jumping ahead, but it's part of what we did here. Shyamsundar, as I said in the event recently, he's a visionary. He reminds me of Mark Twain in some ways. He's gotten fortunes and he's lost fortunes. And Shai, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
So finally we got this place because I was standing in a line at the Charters Bank, and someone,
Managing your huge bank account. But you got like £5.
no, we were checking, Mr. Balfour, how much do we have in Mr. Balfour? Whatever, and somebody comes and says, do you know Shyamsundar? And I said, yeah, he's here, and they always said, I know him from San Francisco. So he had this place, Bury Place, right in the center of London.
He was an estate agent, right? Like that, or he worked for an estate agent.
Probably something like
I
that.
think so.
Right in the center of London, but still permits, Greater London Council, and we had a neighbor, Mr. French, who was complaining all the time. He worked in Covent Garden Food Market. Later, a DT, who's a saint, decided to steal some fruit one day, and it happened to be his barrel. Anyway, that's a whole other story. Anyway, so he's building it. Prabhupada's eyes, one of my favorite photos is when Prabhupada saw what you did in the temple. His eyes are so beautiful. By the way, I'm working on a new photo book, so it's in that. Yeah, I'm going to come out with a new, The Swami Who Rocked the World, photographic essays. So that photo's in. So Shyamsundar and Tirthapada, we were out at John Lennon's estate. They were going, two of them, maybe another one, building it single-handedly and curving the wood. So now we're doing it, but Mr. French, so now we try it out, let's have some kirtan. Immediately he complains. It's going through the wall. So there was a hallway and the temple room and his apartment. So I said, well, we'll rent his apartment. Give him another apartment. Anyway, they didn't go for that. American, you know.
Council. Fixed rent. They had fixed rents in those days.
Oh, yeah. So he complained, when you sing your songs, or whatever he said, it goes to the wall, and my wife faints when she hears the kirtan, and my little dog goes, yip, 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 yip.
I think it was a poodle, a little poodle.
So, we got a letter from Mr. Drieberg, MP, that said it's categorically soundproof, and it wasn't. So this is what we did. Some of you know this story, but it seems like there's some new people, and it shows our, I don't know what it shows. Initiative, yeah. So, we had this plan. I remember Don and Jaya really liked this plan, because he was talking about how he was very energetic. So he was the one who led the kirtan. So, in the door, it had an oval double glass thing you can see in the door, redwood door.
Yeah.
A window, and then you open and close the door. So the door's open, and we're doing so now his lawyer is the fencing champion. We had Lord Goodman, the Prime Minister's solicitor. We didn't have any chairs. We had to borrow chairs from the Theosophical Society. It was zoned for 2 people, caretakers. There's 36 devotees. Their sleeping bags are hidden. They come in, we have this meeting, and he's complaining, the sound's going through the wall, my wife's fainting, my dog's going yip, yip, yip. The door's open, rousing kirtan. Is there some cartels? So, this is, the door's open. So this is what happened, the door's open, and all the solicitors are there, the hall is crowded, so the door's open. Door's open. Door's closed. Mridanga, boom, 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 boom. Door's open. Door's closed. Door's open. Haribo, Haribo. Door's closed. They said, we can't hear it in the hall. How can you say it's going through?
They had a decibel meter. These were the council inspectors. They had a decibel meter. Zero.
Stroppy. Then he says it's a bloody trick, and the doorknob comes out, and he's pointed like a raccoon in headlights. He pries the door open to get out, and 36 sleeping bags full.
It's so much fun. I think that's what allowed us to endure and make this whole yatra successful, was our sense of humor and fun. That we're having so much fun among us that none of that mattered. None of the suffering mattered.
Does it really matter? It really is Krishna who's the controller.
Our god brother Mukunda is one of the world's funniest men. He's very straight-faced and very expressionless sometimes when he's telling you a joke. Or he's a great musician, so he can mimic anyone.
Yeah.
As we were meeting new people around London, your accents and everything were different to us, and it seemed rather quaint. And I must say, amusing to us. So we, quite often when we met an Englishman or an Indian person during the day, we would spend that evening sitting around mimicking what they said.
Prem Sayal. Remember Prem Sayal?
Prem Sayal, oh, what a character. You tell the Prem Sayal story.
He's one of the ones who used to do...
Kirtan.
He used to do kirtan, but stop, and then he would discuss it.
But bhajans, they call
bhajans, bhajans, and he was very flowery, but he looked more like Charlie Chaplin, so we used to.
And he had long hair, black hair.
Which reminds me of a story in the Straight Theater. Remember that guy Ashok Fakir?
I don't remember.
Narayan Naran was his. Anyway, a ball of Bengal. They do Sahajiya intoxicated plays about Lord Chaitanya, but they're good musicians. So we had a friend, Ashok Fakir. He had a following. So now we're in the Straight Theater, we're doing kirtan, and he's in ecstasy, and he swoons and falls on the ground in ecstasy. But then he got up just in time to talk. So now, what do? I said, Swamiji, Ashok Fakir swooned, but he seemed to be faking because he got up just in time to speak. So Prabhupada laughed. I said, what should I do if I see someone and I think they're faking? He said, kick him. Kick him. Because if he's in ecstasy, he won't feel it. And if he's faking, he'll get up.
I can remember whenever I needed a good laugh, I'd say, Gurudas, do Prem Sayal for me.
Yeah, we would
do Prem Sayal for me. The harmonium, your harmonium.
Anyway, he was one of the characters.
Gurudas would go, oh Krishna, oh Krishna. And then eventually he'd fall on the floor. And there was another guy that made us laugh all the time. His name was Panditji.
Oh, yeah.
He was our Indian music instructor.
Actually, he was the first one that showed George sitar before
And he was
Ravi
the
Shankar.
world's slowest talking person.
No, Mr. Chabria.
Oh, we hadn't met Mr. Chabria yet.
Gurudas.
Just a little higher.
Yeah, so we had our characters. And then the first devotees. Kulashekar, Tirthapada, Digvijaya, Dhanvanjaya. So many. And then Mandakini. Okay. I told you I was going to glorify you, but... Okay, the other night at the event, Don and Jaya said what he liked from me, he got something from every one of us, was how we transversed the Harinam in London. Number one, we knew all the one-way streets. So when they had the van, we would go down the one-way streets. That's number one. Number two, they were hassling us in Piccadilly Circus because they said we were obstructing, and it's true. So they said, if you come back here, we're gonna arrest you. So I had my trusty camera. I borrowed Radha Krishna's army hat and coat.
Overcoat.
Yeah. So the plan was there was about 8 or 9 pairs. So let's say 16 devotees in pairs. And when the Bobby would come to arrest us, they would go down like this. And I photographed it. So who do we put in front? This beautiful, saintly face of Mandakini, like that would melt anything. And Jyotirmayi, you right? It was Jyotirmayi, not
No, I was there.
You were there?
Yeah.
But were you in the front or
I
Jyotirmayi?
don't know, probably Jyotirmayi, but I remember getting in the police van and bowing down before getting in.
Calamity.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, this is Halidar, and the 3 women from France were such hard workers. I didn't even know what Halidar's face looked like because she was always on her knees cleaning the floor. So anyway, so the plan is, so it's true. So the Bobby goes down, and there it is. So then they were arresting us all the time. So then Yogeshwara and I went, and we got arrested on Shaftesbury Avenue. So we go before the magistrate, and they say, obstruction. And I said, where were we arrested? Shaftesbury Avenue. What time do we go to sleep? We go to sleep at 9:30, 10, hot note. We were arrested at this time. I proved by where we were and the time that we weren't obstructing. He's looking over his bifocals. Is this true, Officer Derek? Yeah, so, okay. So then I said, actually, we're just singing the names of the Lord, and we don't want to obstruct. So he said, quite. But then he had to get his 2 pies in. He says, this is typically English. He says, but must you trundle on the footpath in your costume? Trundle on the footpath in your costume? I said, they're not costumes. Just like your robes represent the law, our represents the Lord God. Oh, quite.
You forgot to tell them the punchline after you took the photo of all the devotees like this with these officers standing over them. You took the photos to the newspapers. So that the papers came out next day, police harassing Christians. After that, they left us alone.
They did.
They left us alone. That was too bad publicity for the police.
Yeah, because before we got a dark room eventually, on the top floor of our Betterton Street flat, there was a dark room, but it also was Michael X. So I used to go to Fleet Street to do the photograph. So Michael X, I heard Malcolm X in Harlem, New York. I was in the civil rights movement. He was a powerful speaker. At the Apollo Theater in Harlem, I was the only white-skinned person. Everybody else had dark skins. My best friend was the warlord of a gang. And Malcolm X comes out and says, the white man's the devil. And everybody's looking at me. So my friend Chicky says, you ain't white. I said, well, you can think that, but at any rate, then a beautiful female singer came and calmed everybody down. But So that's the point. I was in the civil rights movement, and so on the top floor was Michael X, the branch of Malcolm X, the black Muslims.
Black Panthers.
Muslims.
Black Muslims?
Black Muslims. No, I know the Black Panthers too, but this is the black Muslims. And see, here's where we have a little bit of a difference, his exaggeration and my true story. Because I was familiar with the language, you know, like I said, you know, why don't you go to another crib, you know, and knock yourself, I knew the slang. So I said, so in his book, we all went there and asked him to leave. Oh yeah, Mukunda would really threaten him. Yeah, Mukunda Maharaj. Oh yeah, I'm gonna leave because he looks so tough. Maybe because of Malati, but nobody. Anyway, sorry. Anyway, the truth is, I went up there and just spoke to him. I said, hey man, why don't you just get another crib, because we're here now. And I said, by the way, we're going to start singing at 3:30 in the morning. Oh. I got him out of jail later. It's another story. We remained friends. So those are the kind of...
Yeah, well, okay. Another point on that one, a follow-up, he was hanged in 1972 or something. He was hanged for murder in Princetown or something.
They were out
Jamaica.
to get him.
Yeah, anyway.
No, they
right.
planted some counterband, and his apartment was so full of toys and cribs and babies and dogs. So he said, Gurudas, please photograph it, because this will prove that they couldn't find what they said they did in 5 minutes, and we won the case.
Well, you may not remember it that clearly. I remember. You not only spoke his language and soft-talked him, but you were threatening too. You had a tough guy. You were a tough guy. Whenever there was something like that that needed to be done, confrontational, Gurudas usually went out in front. He's a tough guy from New York.
He thinks so, I don't.
Well, I remember it clearly. You need to get another place, Michael.
Maybe so, I don't know.
We were just having...
Whatever you have to do for Krishna, time, place, circumstance.
Yeah, another fun thing we did. Remember that? We heard that Ravi Shankar was going to...
Oh, yeah.
He gave a concert. I think it was in May or April of
Yeah.
69, maybe.
Yeah.
And that he was going to be hosted that night by the ambassador to India in his quarters, the embassy in
Kensington, right?
Kensington, yeah.
Gated
So
community.
we made a plan. We were always doing this. Well, let's go crash the party. So we all got in my truck, and we were all dressed up in our best clothes. In my little truck, there was only room for 2 of us. The baby in between. They were all in the back, in the open. We pulled up to all the embassies are in one quarter, in Grosvenor Square or something.
Yeah, right.
I don't remember what the name of that, Kensington Square. And there was a big gate with 2 bobbies. And as we pulled in there, this old truck, this pouring smoke out the back. The bobby says, yeah, I rolled the window down. I said, they're expecting us at the Indian embassy party. And we got your invitation. So it was dark. They were looking all over the place. The baby was crying. Baby was crying. Finally, he looked at us and said, I can see you're dressed for the occasion. Pulled up, and it was one of these turn-ins, you know, a circular driveway where you pull in under the canopy, and we parked in there, left the truck running, because if you stopped it, you couldn't start it. The butler came down in his tuxedo and opened the door, and we came up, and I told the valet, whatever you do, park this thing before you stop it, because we won't start again. we came in, and he asked Mukunda, who shall I say is who are you? So the butler opened the door and yelled, and all these elegant people, the queens and queens of the society were all in there in their evening gowns drinking cocktails and champagne, and he said, "The International Society for Consciousness." And everybody stopped and looked. These weird people walking in the door. Robbie recognized us, and he said, "Oh, these are friends of mine, it's okay."
But do you remember how the ambassador took to us?
Yeah, he took to us.
He took us upstairs.
He invited us to a private dinner the next weekend in there.
And he was a communist. So, do you want to tell the story like that before I go on with this?
The crank story?
Yeah.
The crank story. Well, we're on this truck. If you stopped it, you couldn't start it with the electric ignition. You had to. There was a crank about this long with a handle on it. And it took something. You had to go out in front of the vehicle and crank very hard while someone inside pushed on the gas. And it usually was Gurudas' job because he's the strongest. And one night we were leaving George Harrison's place out on some remote highway, A3 or something, in the middle of the night, and it was starting to snow, and we got a flat. And all of us were there in the back of the truck. It's dark. And finally we got the tire fixed. Gurudas, you got to run in front to start this thing. So he had him the thing. And I've got the headlights on so he could see where to put the crank. And he's cranking this thing. And it starts. And the end of the crank was under his dhoti, and it went like that. The dhoti flew off. 6 or 7 yards of flaming in the wind, and all the cars passing by. We laughed so hard for about 10 minutes.
So the ambassador took to us. This is showing the adventure of Krishna, what we're talking about. Look, do it with joyousness, because Krishna is the controller, so you're not attached so much to the fruits. So the ambassador really liked us, and he then became the ambassador of the governor of Bengal. And so we were in Bengal, and he's there. And he lived in Gandhi's palace. So he said, and he was communist, but he loved kirtan. So he said, come and have kirtan. He erected a stage. It was kind of flimsy. There was a young society girl from Calcutta that I really, I wanted to make sure that she wasn't assimilated into some weird experience in Krishna consciousness. I looked out for her, that nobody would step in her banana plate or whatever. No, in LA I had to school them all how to deal with the public anyway, so I was watching out for her. Elegant, sorry, on the stage. And Minister Mukherjee, who we were trying to meet, he was the finance minister. He was a Gadya Vaishnava, but the secretaries, you have to go through all of those a lot of times. We have so many adventures with that too. So, I look, where is she? She's gone. She fell under the stage and broke her leg. So an ambulance comes. An ambulance comes in the middle of the kirtan. Minister Mukherjee, in ecstasy, the finance minister, Gadya Vaishnav, jumps up in ecstasy, has a heart attack. So it was a 2-ambulance kirtan at the ambassador's house.
And the fun really began when Prabhupada arrived. He finally came. And we finally had everything together for him in the most perfect conditions. When Srila Prabhupada arrived, and what was it, September 11th, something like that, 1969, he was picked up by the chauffeured limousine of one of the most famous, Rolls-Royce limousine of one of the most famous men in the world, taken to his home and given his quarters. The Hare Krishna mantra was in the top 10 records in the country. Millions of people were hearing the Hare Krishna mantra every day. So when Prabhupada arrived, it was perfect timing. And besides all that, the fun really began then, because Prabhupada was part of our merry crew. He was the leader of our merry crew.
Yeah. So I'll tell an illustrative story about that. So we're all living on John Lennon's estate in the servants' quarter, but Yoko said, "Could you live that simple, John?" When they were impressed with Prabhupada, could you? No. They had a bed that had everything. Refrigerators, and television, and guitar, at any rate. So we're walking in the morning, and Prabhupada was the only one who had intelligence to wear Wellington boots. We had sandals and sneakers with holes in the typical spaced out devotees. And we're in a V, and Prabhupada's leaving us. And we pass Frank the gardener's cottage, and we're walking, and I see a worm going for Prabhupada's feet. They're just on a collision course. I was thinking of saying something, but I'm not the controller, and also if the worm gets stepped on by Prabhupada, it might be liberation, like people falling under the juggernaut. My mind is machinating. Should I, shouldn't I? Should I, shouldn't I? And the worm in Prabhupada's feet. And then I saw the worm goes on in Prabhupada's feet. And I see all of our footprints in the dewy morning grass, and like Yudhisthira's chariot, Prabhupada's footprints weren't there. So he loved to walk with us, and he'd call us in, and there's so many stories about how he nurtured us, and he did it out of love, and he was playful.
Well, he liked to have fun with us. For example, right after he came, we had an agent booking us into nightclubs and venues all over England as the Radha Krishna Temple, a famous rock group. So we were always gone. I mean, almost every night, Prabhupada would see us in the morning and say, "Where were you?" "Oh, we were in Manchester last night at a nightclub singing." So Gurudas came in and told him one day that we had to go to Holland that day to do a TV show. And Prabhupada says, "And I cannot come?" "Oh yes, you can come, Prabhupada." Somehow or other, Gurudas made arrangements for Prabhupada to be able to speak as after our song played on Top Pop, it was called, the program in Holland. And we all got a chance, the first time I think ever, as a rock group, traveling with their spiritual master. It was we all went to the airport and flew to Amsterdam. And you tell the story. You were the chief negotiator on that one.
One time in Vrindavan, I'm going to get back to it, but I'm going to get back. But I want to show you how beautiful Prabhupada is. So we were going on a tour, and I said, "All devotees, line up for the bus." And there's a picture of Prabhupada in the airport. He lines up on the bus. I said, "Prabhupada, we have a car for you." He said, "Am I not a devotee?" He was like that. So we all go to the studio, and there's no windows.
In Amsterdam.
Yeah. And he said that there's going to be some people in the future that will never see the sun. And we all sat there in the green room, and it was so nice. And then we get to the television studio, and they have dry ice to make it look mystical. They did it all the time, a bucket of dry. And they had dancing girls. Well, I have to go back to the Top of the Pops in England because they had dancing girls there. And I said, and it was a live show, and I said, no, and they're up in cages. And I said, no, we're a religious group, and we had slides and everything. The guy said, they have to dance. I paid them union, some stuff. They have to. So Chaitra Guru comes in. Oh, first I said, okay, let's go. I was the president of the temple. You started packing up your instruments. We didn't care. 4 minutes of blank time on a live show. The guy's going, what? So I said, wait, get some cloth and we'll teach the girls how to do the Swami step. The trance dance. They loved it. Like sheeps of wood in the wind. So now, again, we got the girls to not be part of Prabhupada's act. And we got him to speak for, they said, how long? They didn't want him to speak, but we had negotiated 2 minutes. Prabhupada took 3, but he encapsulated Krishna consciousness. It was wonderful. And then in the airport, nobody had any money. We lost the luggage. Everybody's running around. And I look over at Prabhupada in the middle of chaos.
Yeah.
I did a whole series of the photos. In the middle of chaos, look at that beautiful, peaceful.
He loved it because he was out with his children for a fun holiday in Holland.
He liked to say see.
He loved to do stuff like that. Yeah. He was the master of all.
And here he loved to walk in the morning. He would see the X's on the building and say, coal and potato economy.
What?
Coal and potato. That's the economy here.
Coal and potato.
Coal and potato.
Coal and potatoes.
Potato. Anyway, because he said, look, they're renting it out before they're even there, and he used to make fun of the Glide building, and all that,
Srila Prabhupada had a different relationship with every one of his disciples. And I think Gurudas and I had a kind of a special Prabhupada tickled our funny bones more than almost as any of his other disciples. You and I joked with Prabhupada more than anyone I can remember.
Yeah.
Once in a while, Tamal could get a joke on.
Yeah, but he didn't have any sense of humor.
He didn't have even when Prabhupada was making, in the middle of a lecture sometimes, I could just see him and crack up with laughter.
Yeah.
Because the cosmic attitude that Prabhupada personified is so much fun and so full of amusement and jolliness that just to be with Prabhupada was fun. That was my major remembrance of Prabhupada. And you were that much that way too, Guru. You and I had a fun relationship.
Yeah, because he would have the rasa with his disciples. So if someone did have a good sense of humor, he wouldn't let a joke go by.
One time I asked Prabhupada, what is laughter?
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is a good one.
And he said, laughter is the difference between what you expect and what really happens. It's surprise, right?
Yeah.
Surprise makes us happy.
Yeah.
You laugh when you're surprised.
Basis of humor.
And Prabhupada surprises us every second.
And each one is different. It's like we're talking, Rancha was talking half of it. Prabhupada said to somebody, do you want me to tell you what you want to hear or the truth? You know, like that. And then when he was trying to get his visa. So somebody said, well, you can marry somebody. He said, no, I'm sannyasi. What? Nandarani and Dayananda wanted to adopt him, and Prabhupada said, but then they'll say, what are you doing with such an old son? You know? There's always, you look so beautiful today, just today, you know. And then he called Govinda Dasi the Starvation Committee. He was just like...
He had a great relationship with Govinda, sort of like with Janaki, like his naughty daughter.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, he used to
Janaki.
tease Janaki too.
Yeah.
He said,
Oh,
Jamuna's better devotee than you. Yeah, but who he used to tease was Saraswati.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, my daughter. Yeah, yeah.
Do you remember?
Of course. I mean,
Would you want to tell when she was on your shoulders near the lake?
I don't know that one.
Okay. Well, Shyamsundar would carry her on his shoulders, and Malathi would sling her on the hip like an Indian woman. So Saraswati had she was the one who got everybody dancing Conway Hall. She had quite a adventurous childhood herself. So Prabhupada says, we're going by a lake, and he says, Shyamsundar, does Saraswati know how to swim?
I don't remember that one.
Yeah, and she said, no. And he said, no, Shyamsundar, does he know? So she said, no. So Shyamsundar, and then he stopped. But he'd do that. So then he gave her a little deity with a laddu.
The guy in Madras gave her. It was silver.
Would you
very
want to
precious.
tell this story?
Well, I can tell it. But
Sure, you could.
many times actually played this game with her, but on one particular occasion, in Madras, we call it Chennai now, one of the a big man, a politician or something, fell in love with her. And he gave her a little silver Krishna, the Gopal. Yeah. It was very precious, but she played with it for a couple of days, and Prabhupada thought it might be too valuable for her. So he took it and hid it. And she would come in to see him every morning before everybody else, so like 7 or 8 o'clock. She'd come to his room every morning and just sit with him.
Sometimes on his lap.
Yeah, we would come in every morning, and Saraswati had already been there having this long talk with Srila Prabhupada. She could barely talk, but they played together like that every morning. And and then we were there in Prabhupada's room in Madras, and she ran by the hall real fast. And the guy was there who had given her the murti. And Prabhupada yelled down the hall, Saraswati, where are you going? She said, I have to pass stool. She kept going. And then she finally came back and she said, Saraswati, your friend is here who was giving you Krishna. And she says, but I can't find Krishna. Where is he? And then she looked at Prabhupada and said, you have him. And she ran up to started going under his dhoti, looking all over around him on his bed and under the pillows.
Where's Krishna?
And Prabhupada pulled out this little doll of Krishna that he'd gotten her. Says, and here's Krishna. She grabbed it and ran out of the room.
Always an alternative, you see.
Yeah.
And he would play with little Kishori. She would run up to his cushion and he would tussle her hair. And then she would run. And it was like 2 golden retrievers. I'm watching this like, okay, now half an hour has passed and she's still running and he's still... Finally they stopped. Should we stop?
How are we doing on time, Giant Time? Excuse me? 7 or 8 minutes. Okay. How did it all start? Well, I think we did some tonight about how it started. It's not just the history, but the mood that went along with it. I think that was so important. The fun we had and our serious commitment to Srila Prabhupada, and the knowledge that by taking such risks, Krishna had to help us. We were convinced that we would see Krishna faster than any other way by taking these kinds of risks. And didn't he come through? Whoa, we got to see miracles happen, one after another.
But I say that was then and this is now. So rather than resting on any laurels, let us continue serving forever till our last breath.
Does anyone have any questions or points they want to raise?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Do you find in the recounting of the pastimes and adventures that you recall things that aren't in the books that you've written? And if you do, is there going to be another book?
Well, you're the hypnotist, aren't you? Don't you know it? Yeah, maybe you can hypnotize me or something.
No, it's guided meditation. You could destigmatize it. It works in indigenous cultures, and there's a lot of stuff stored in our subconscious, including memory. So actually, no, it's true. Sometimes something will trigger off. There's so many. It's like WWPD. What would Prabhupada do? He's always on my shoulder, and it's the weirdest thing. Reminds me, didn't something the other day, I came up with this weird little vignette that you wouldn't think, but it just triggered this memory. So yeah, there's a lot of things, and he was so multifaceted that not only is it wisdom on how to do things, but a general protection.
Yeah.
Like he's there.
So you probably get this question too a lot. People ask me all the time, what's your favorite memory of Srila Prabhupada? There's no way you can have even 100 favorite memories.
I always ask
Every
what
moment
category.
with him was like some kind of special moment.
Yeah, you
I
gotta
wish
ask.
I could remember.
No, you gotta ask what category, because it's,
What category? What subcategory?
yeah, it's like what kind of water do you like in the universe?
Can I ask you again, just to get that quote right, did you ask Prabhupada what is the meaning of laughter? And what I've got is that the difference.
Between what you expect and what really happens.
So that's the answer. I'm asking his question to Prabhupada is what is the meaning of laughter?
Yeah.
And Prabhupada's reply is that laughter is the difference between what you expect and what really happens.
Yeah.
That's just fascinating.
And because he was in his own transcendental realm, we're walking in San Francisco. We love to walk every morning, and he stops by some bird feces, and he says, because you just said, what's the meaning of this? So Upender especially, he started to blush, and then he said, well, it's like tea leaves in the position. No problem. Said, what's the meaning? Nobody knew. He said, these birds have lived in this tree for 2 weeks. He counted the feces with his cane. And then we walked on. And he said, see, even birds are attached to their apartments.
Any other points? No.
I would imagine there were times of disappointment and frustration. And was there a particular memory or piece of advice or something that kept you going during those difficult times of frustration?
Well, the key to our work was Prabhupada's continuous letter flow. He advised us, each one of us got a letter from Prabhupada maybe once every 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So whenever anything, we just those letters pulled us out of it, whatever disappointments or.
And when he was present,
Oh,
yeah.
they were no.
But it's true, because they asked, I remember they asked us, how did you do this? So many things, and did so many things. we just wanted to see Prabhupada smile and you coming. What news, you know?
Those letters too, those letters were our lifeblood.
Yeah, and then we read, when one would come, we'd all read it.
We actually one time got a transatlantic phone call through.
Yeah, on Nigel's phone
We
that
talked
everyone
to
could hear.
Prabhupada. Speakerphone.
Yeah, we took over this office called the Bibliophile. The guy we got, the person we got the building from, the Samuels family, they said, do the talking again. He was an emaciated guy, looked like Oscar Wilde.
He was
Wild
a
with
heroin addict.
Yeah, he had no handshake, you know. But at any rate, he gave us the place.
He had that center point thing, didn't he?
Was that his?
Yeah, that was.
Another failure. At any rate, he had a bibliophile office, but she was never there, so we just took over the office, and Prabhupada called us on the phone that everybody could speak into
It was
it.
a new gadget.
Yeah, right.
Speakerphone.
New gadgets. Here's Prabhupada. I asked Prabhupada, I said, okay, now this thing called telex has come out. So we could, because we lost the palace with the king by snail mail, but it was meant to lose the palace, but because of snail mail, we lost it. At any rate, I said, now this telex, we can have it in every temple of the world and we can communicate. And Prabhupada said, yes, but they also might gossip on it. Social media, you see?
They will only gossip.
Or maybe they will only gossip. Yeah. They will only gossip.
Yeah, another
Could
time
be.
in New York, they told him about a computer, what a computer is. It was the early 70s. They were already using crude computers and that with those tapes and stuff in them. And there was this guy was explaining to Prabhupada what is a computer. He considered it a while and then he says, yes, but one tiny thing and the whole thing is useless.
It's true.
It's true.
And didn't you give him a digital watch?
Oh,
And it went like this. He said, now I need 2 hands to tell time. Right?
that's one thing. But on the other hand, he loved to show it to his godbrother.
Oh, hell yeah. No, he asked Dr. Kapoor, do you have your teeth? And this doctor, because he said, I have my teeth. You have my, and this Dr. Kapoor said, yes, if you see them in a glass of water every night. And so,